So, hi everybody. Let's see if everything sure that you can hear me. I don't think I changed the numbers. I'll change the numbers. Yeah, I forgot to change the numbers. I'll do that. But it looks like you can see me and doesn't want to let me go on. Let me make sure I can get on. There you go. Okay. Okay, so this is 1,783 days. I'll change the numbers. I'll go back and do that. But because every day is breaking news and it is absolutely full of so much to do when it comes to Richard's case. And I just can't even explain it to everybody, but I hope that you understand and you can see that we've been right all along. We've been right about the Walmart case. We've been right about Richard. We've been right about his car. We've been right about the cover up, the huge cover up, 15 plus agencies. We're at 21. I should say 20 plus agencies, but the narrative was always 15 plus agencies, and that was confirmed by Senator Ted Cruz. Senator Ted Cruz's letter that I posted it. It's up there, 15 plus agencies, and we have to identify the crime for each one of those, right? Identify the crime and document the crime, and file the crimes over and over and over again, because they are absolutely used to just uh, not, thinking that they're above the law. I think that that's, they kept talking about that the last 4 years, and that's exactly how they act. Is they think that they're above the law and that they can act with impunity, and that they forgot who their boss is, and the boss is of the people, really God, right? God is the boss, and because we're a nation under God, they don't like that sometimes. A lot of people don't like that. A lot of people don't believe in God. I can tell you, I believe in God. I believe in God. Yeah, I was just talking to my grandchildren today about today being the solstice, the summer solstice, the sun creating this beautiful analemma every year. The sun, if you stand in one place and take a picture at the same time every day, and then you take those pictures and make one of those little flip books, right? You'll see the sun make an analemma, the infinity sign up in the sky. It's amazing. And the moon does it every 29.5 days. Every 29.5 days. If you take a picture of the moon every day, if you have a clear shot at the same time, you have to do it at the same time. And then you overlay those pictures and make like a little flip book. Yeah, you'll see the moon make its analemma. So both the sun and the moon make an analemma. The moon, it takes 29.5 days, a month, and the sun, it takes a year, 365 days. And today is the high point of the analemma. It's the summer solstice. It's when the sun reaches the Tropic of Cancer, and then makes its way again towards the equator, towards the Tropic of Capricorn for the winter solstice, and then it'll come back, right? Um, it is, it's just amazing. I'm not an expert on the whole thing. I just think it's amazing. It's a great project for anyone to do, especially for students. And when you watch that, you absolutely believe in God. When you um, look at the heavens anyway, you absolutely believe in God because they're just amazing. I love to take pictures of stars. Um, they're just, and I'm in touch with some of the best star photographers. Just absolutely amazing, amazing what you can see. Um, so, and the heavens declare the glory of God. That's the point I'm trying to make. And then when you're in a situation like we're in, with Richard's case, with our son's case, um, and you see that you are um, having 15 plus agencies or and more, right? 15 plus agencies having infiltrated individuals in El Paso. And this is what's so important about El Paso is that someone in HR is doing this, right? Someone in the deep state in HR is doing this because they're putting people in El Paso, the front door of the United States. They're putting people there in the Texas Rangers, there in the El Paso ISD police force, there in the El Paso police force, there um, in the FBI, there in the intelligence, the EPIC, the El Paso intelligence community. Um, Absolutely, they're putting people there as commanders of Fort Bliss, are putting people there at William Beaumont, they're putting people there at Texas Tech University. Health Services are putting people there in UTEP, they're putting people there in KTEP, they're putting people there at El Paso Matters, and and on and on. They're putting people in the CID that are from that area. Okay, these are people that are from that area. They're embedded in that area. They have so many conflicts of interest. I can't even tell you how many conflicts of interest are in this case. Who's married to who, and who's having an affair with who, and who has children with who, and they're all living there, and they're all in these positions, in the courthouse. Um, Lawyers that have very important law firms there that are connected to the ISDs. The ISDs are it's been an education for us to see the situation in there, and so to try to get answers. Even the canine cop, right, Melendez, the canine cop, that was on the show, was on TV, got the dirty as anything. He's so dirty. Um, so, you're up against something like this, and you have this beautiful son that, grew up in Europe, comes to El Paso, heard all his life about these wonderful things in El Paso, and then sees all this corruption and criminal trafficking and reports it. He has this family duty to El Paso. He already has a love for El Paso because we told him. I was born at White Sands. I think White Sands Missile Range, one of the very few babies ever to be born on the range. I'm one of the very few babies ever to be born on White Sands Missile Range, the range, not William Beaumont Hospital, but on the range. And it's the biggest land military base that we have, right? And of course I went to school in El Paso. My dad was ADA. That's why you saw um um when he was very sick there, but commenting on if he would have, if he left that a long time ago, and um And if he was there, he would know where Richard was. If he was the NCO, he would know where Richard was, and you better believe it that he would, because when all this happened with the Gulf War, um, my dad absolutely went to work again, and he was in Iraq. He as a civilian, and with translators, many translators were killed. Um, so my father is just very, very brave, very brave, um, and absolutely a total patriot. 23 years of service, and he absolutely pointed his finger at Jerry Jakovitz, the commander, the not the command, the command sergeant major, and said, "This is your fault. This is your thing. This is your." Oh yeah, I remember when he did that. It's just you just praise God that you have these amazing men. I just have had these amazing men around me compared to the traitors that that HR put there in El Paso. Absolute traitors. That's what they are. They assign traitors to these positions so that they could criminal traffic and do these contracts, grand theft, larceny of the American people with impunity. That's what's going on. So, so today is 1,783 days. 83 days. I forgot to change the number there, but since Richard was forcibly removed from the barracks on Fort Bliss, and his life was taken. And we don't have his remains. We don't have his remains. We have, for almost 5 years, provided our findings to these 15 plus. Like I said, we've counted 21 agencies that we've documented and filed. And because of that, we in 2024, April 24th, 2024, we received the declaration that Richard was deceased because the evidence was just totally overwhelming, and even more and more evidence, but also the political 4 days after President Trump took office, his team looked at the evidence and declared Richard killed in the line of duty on Fort Bliss. Well, all the combined paperwork that we have absolutely confirm. There is no if and buts ors, nothing. It is that he was murdered in the line of duty on Fort Bliss. That's the bottom line. And it doesn't matter what task and purpose don't want to report on. It doesn't matter what El Paso Matters doesn't. Well, El Paso Matters. Bob Moore is not just, he's not a journalist, he's not a reporter in this case, right? He is an active co conspirator. He is a jefe capo. He is a media jefe capo, but he's an active co conspirator to the targeting of Richard, that led to his taking of his life, and then proceeded to cover up the crime. He's the cover up of the cover up, right? He's the cover up of his own conspiracy engagement and participation in the targeting of Richard. And can you imagine how heartbreaking it was when we're looking at information in our investigation into Richard's car, who, we've been doing for a long time, trying to get answers. And there's several different VINs, y'all. There's VIN washing, there's title, whatever, all this corruption when it comes to these cars. Okay. And of course, that's ANR, Chavira Auto Group, which are AR Auto Group. They're in court right now for deceptive practices. Okay, they're in court, and they've split up. Alex and Raquel has split up. She is, they have two children together, but she has since married a soldier, and um, yeah. So to find out and who uh, the other workers that were there, the other connections to that auto group were, and to find out that it's Manuel Chavira of El Paso ISD, his wife Teresa Chavira, and El Paso Matters Bob Moore and his wife Kathleen Gannon. They are like all one big family, right? And to find that out and to know all the other information we have about Richard's vehicle, um, i- when you see Bob Moore's name and Kathleen Gannon's name of KTEP, right, which is NPR, PBS, and you know that Bob Moore is El Paso Matters, but also El Paso Times. You know that KTSM is Danae Katzen and Jonathan Ambrose, this connection. But um, you know that Amber Chase is El Paso ISD, and her friend is also with media and tied to the DA's the DA's office with Bill Hicks. And Bill Hicks, of course, his chief of staff was cartel um, Luis Rene Diaz, who, didn't even have to have a background check. That was all waived because he is connected to Arturo Alba. They were arrested and indicted together. Arturo Alba didn't get away from that with his life. He was he lost his life by a gunshot, um, and um, and they're connected to Willie Moya, the big cartel guy, and that also lost his life with a gunshot. Um, um, and Juarez, big cartel leaders, big into money laundering and all of that with his bars and stuff. I could go on and on and on and on. It would take hours to tell you all of our investigation and how they're connected. But the fact is that Bob Moore is a co-conspirator um, in targeting Richard. And this A&R Chavira Auto Group is a big part of that um, because Richard, they couldn't get him in the barracks. Remember, they were bringing in the young girls and all the other substances and everything. And he said he rather burn his money than spend it on whores and blow. And so, the normal way of compromising these soldiers that want to be a whistleblower didn't work on Richard because, they'll bring in a 14-year-old girl. Maybe the 14-year-old girl doesn't look 14-year-old, right? She might look much older or whatever, and the soldiers don't bother to ask. They bring him in to party, and we know that because Command Sergeant Major Jerry Jakovitz told us that they were bringing him in even during the COVID lockdown. And we know that there was a 14-year-old girl living in the barracks for 4 months, and they were making money off of selling her for favors for 4 months, and that she was the stepdaughter of one of the gate guards under DES Thomas Kane. We know this for a fact. It was in the newspaper. They had no choice but to tell the public about it. But they were doing this a lot. They were doing this a lot, and there was a lot of cameras going, and a lot of airdrops, right? All these airdrops, and you can absolutely control soldiers, intimidate witnesses, silence witnesses, because you have them on video with a young girl, and it's illegal when they're 14 years old. It's illegal Okay, it's illegal to have these favors with these girls, and so, especially when they are carrying substances and there's a lot of alcohol, over and over and over again, there's testimonies to us when we were doing our rallies. There were testimony after testimony that the soldiers were staying drunk. I mean, they would go there for 2 years and stay drunk, right? So Richard was absolutely a threat to them because he was sparkling clean. They couldn't compromise him, you see. And he was a whistleblower. That means he absolutely documented, and we have Boleyn Rochett witness to that, and others to uh, that he was a whistleblower, that he absolutely made the calls, that he absolutely turned in the information. And we know from his file he was in communication with Washington, D.C., with FBI Houston. He called 911 numerous times. The IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. That was, I can't even tell you the names of these witnesses because, the retaliation is very, very real. And we know that the CID absolutely knew who Richard was, um, and they used this car company to, because Richard, our family, um, we're we don't like to get into debt. We try to stay out of debt, and this whole car issue was, be careful. Um, don't just go buy a new car for a big loan and everything. And I wish I would have told him just go do that, right? He would probably be alive. Um, but no, they absolutely use these used cars, and this car auto group, and we didn't know, we had no idea, was deceptive, and very deceptive, and is in court for deceptive practices. So, yeah, and this is Bob Moore. Okay, this is Bob Moore. This is Manuel Chavira. This is Alex Chavira. This is Raquel Primo. This is those that were working um, for them, and law enforcement again. In, in law enforcement, why is law enforcement in this LLC, this auto group LLC, doing deceptive practices? Okay, when they're connected to the Mexican cartel. Why would they be doing deceptive practices when they are trained law enforcement? Um, going to school for law enforcement, but they're connected with the Mexican cartel, and they're doing deceptive practices because they're up to no good. They're up to no good. And that means Bob Moore is absolutely up to no good. And no one had to tell us that Bob Moore was up to no good because we know that the story, how he reported on Richard, and how he um, uh, false, fabricated story against the whistleblower in our son's case, Judge Roger Rodriguez, how that was just absolutely absurd and insane. And the story of our son is absurd and insane. And he, twists things so much to give you a totally different perception of what the case is, to turn you off, and because he knows that we're a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And if we get your attention, then you're going to have accountability. You're going to have a different outcome for the criminals. And so he is really the fixer. He's the jefe capo, the media jefe capo, right? He's the co-conspirator to the crimes, but then he's the media um, jefe capo for the Mexican cartel to cover up for the crimes, to twist the stories. Um, and of course, he is supported by El Paso Community Foundation, which is the Hunt Corporate Hunt Group, Hunt Business, Hunt whatever, um, the Hunt family, and billionaires, and that there's a lot more to that. Um, and so, because people are asking what billionaires are behind this, right? Because there has to be a billionaire behind this. And we know that for the No Kings, um, I don't want to call that, what are they? The riots. Yeah, I think that's the best word. The No Kings riots, because they're not protests, they're really riots. Who's behind it? And um, uh, it's being reported that it's Christy Walton, the Walmart family is behind this, and um, from the Walmart family, I should say that, because I don't want to blame the entire Walmart family. But Chrissy Walton is who is being suspected as being up to no good, trying to give a very false narrative, right? To say no kings is a false narrative. They never say no kings up in Canada when they do a riot, because they have a king, right? They actually have a king, the King of England, right? But the King of Great Britain, the King of, yeah. So but we don't have a king here. You can tell because they're doing the riots, right? They're doing the riots, but they can't do that up there, because they actually have a king. It's a false narrative, and so that is the job of Bob Moore. Not only to just be the media jefe capo. I don't know what to call him. What do you like, jefe or capo? Media jefe, media capo. I should put a poll out. Um, Thank you, Peggy, for praying for justice for our son. And thank you, Anicia, for coming on so late. We're very late tonight. We're burning the midnight oil because I want to talk about George Louis Torres, um, because he's FBI. He was FBI, and he is another important figure. Of course, I have this long chart of suspects in this case, and everything that they're how it's all connected through whose wife and whose marriage and whose children, and it's just crazy what you have to document in order to see. When you document these charts, you can see what's going on, because it's like Bradford Bugado is a G3 of the 32nd ADCOM, of course, the son-in-law of Nidal Baem, but he is in operations. And, my husband's like, okay, so has, uh, he has the role of deployments. Um, he has a role of movements. So you remember Dallas Hard had that fake travel voucher, so when you put things together, you're like, oh yeah, was Bradford Bugado partly behind, we know Chris Martin, but behind this um, fake travel voucher, that is supposed to give, the illusion to everybody that Dallas Hart is not part of this, but he's absolutely the prime suspect of the prime suspects. And, is there a cover up going on? 100% there's a cover up. There is, at this point, there is no doubt in our minds that he's Richard's platoon leader, that he's part of this, that he's a prime suspect, that he needs to be absolutely, totally investigated. Um, and, because has a history he has a history, um, and that's all going to come out. But of course, with Leilani Hart's affidavit, that's his mother, who absolutely says he has a history of the worst type of crimes, the worst type of crimes within his family, the worst type of crimes with children, and even the films being in possession of the worst type of crimes with children on film. Having that on digital, um, on something hard because he was looking for it. It was must be a disk or a thumb drive or um, you know, computer. Um, so yes, he has a long history, and he's absolutely connected to Nidal Baem and Bradford Bugado. Absolutely connected to then Gustavo Sanchez, who's a Texas Ranger, who, of course, is then connected to Nidal and connected to Manuel Chavira, and Teresa Chavira is connected to the El Paso Police Department and very intimate with Jesus Nieto Jr. I mean, you don't have all of these conflicts of interest without something really nefarious going on. Richard was right about the criminal trafficking. He was right to be a whistleblower. He was absolutely right to come to the rescue of the children. And because of this cover up, this institutional cover up, you had then starting March 2021, um, tens, hundreds of thousands of children being trafficked through Fort Bliss at the taxpayer dime, 10,000 at a time. So Richard was right all along. And, but they had a lot of people in places, and George Toros is one of those. George Toros is another one that was in the FBI office. Of course, we have the new one that he's retired now, Michael Cordero. That's been going on behind the scenes. I haven't mentioned him too much, but we had to do a lot of work identifying the crime and documenting the crime and filing the crime. But he was trying to, well, did go try to broadcast about the Walmart mass shooting with Minerva Shelton, and he did some things, because he contacted us and everything. And it's not it was criminal. It was absolutely criminal. That's the only thing I can tell you. And we had to absolutely respond to it because he's part of the El Paso FBI, even though he's retired now, but he absolutely was there then. He was there then. And uh, with with the Walmart case, right? With the Walmart case. And it's very, very important for people to always remember that the Walmart case is very intertwined with Richard's case, because same people. And what's going on at the FBI in El Paso is confirmation and corroborating evidence that they were tampering, um, that they were compromised, that they were engaged in criminal activity instead of catching criminals. And, the Nieto, his wife is in intelligence on Fort Bliss, and he's the one that leaked Judge Roger Rodriguez's whistleblower report identifying Leilani Hart and Tavita Nusa, who was in the Fort Bliss CID, that had his, um, who was leaking and tampering with Richard's files. And then in 2021, he had his badge terminated. Um, yeah, so and that was never told by us, but to us, we had to figure out, it's through time, all the truth comes out, and documents come out, and witnesses come out, and then you learn. Just like we were never lying about Nidal Baem with Western Frontier Trading being up to no good, impersonating an FBI agent, um, and in order to steal that authority, you see, if you're just some guy that walks in and says something, who's going to listen to you? But if you say, I'm FBI, then, you have authority. And he wanted those flyers down, and he wanted silence, and he wanted no more questions about Richard. That's what he wanted. And because, he had inside knowledge that Richard, his life was taken from him, and that um, parts of him were found in Juarez, Mexico. And that was corroborated by, of course, the Department of State, our connection there. Um, what was his name? He had a Irish name, McMillan. McMillan, and then absolutely DES Thomas Kane, and then DHS liaison to the Department of State, Corona, um, Jaime Corona, and it just went on, right? It was being corroborated and everything, and then we got more and more information, and we even got the three autopsy numbers um, that were um, evaluated and everything, and determined to be valid autopsy numbers. So, this is not something that we haven't taken our time with, that we haven't evaluated, that we haven't, we just cannot believe, we couldn't believe the institutions that were part of this. I mean, Howell, CID agent Howell, turned out to have had a past with James Hart, right? That had a past with James Hart. You can't make this stuff up. And then when you learn that the Texas Ranger is even family members with Nidal Baem and Manuel Chavira, and has a connection um, Torres, okay, with George Torres. And George Torres, of course, his wife, is, all of them have um, wives that are involved, like Teresa Chavira, El Paso Police Department retired investigator. Um, they also have their ties and their connections, and Nieto being in the intelligence on Fort Bliss. And now we have Melissa Mendez is that Mendez Melendez, okay? Mendez Melendez. We have Carlos Mendez, part of the case, and we have, of course, Jesus Melendez, and a lot of Mendez Melendez. They have, a mix in their family of Mendez Melendez. So, but Melissa Dawn Mendez, a doctor, which is very concerning for us, because with Texas Tech University Health Science Center, they work alongside Fort Bliss. They work along with William Beaumont Hospital. And that is a huge conflict of interest when her husband is in the El Paso FBI field office. It's just a huge conflict of interest. There's so many things that we can that would prove that, right? That would absolutely prove the huge conflict of interest with that, and contracts and investigations. And of course, in regards to Richard's case, there is, yeah, huge conflicts of interest. So and he's a big player in Richard's case, along with Nieto, along with well, we'll see Cordero, what his what his part was. We'll see, but it is there's several. I have a notebook here of several that we even met during our meetings, and you know, something very, very stinky going on in the FBI field office in El Paso. I can just tell you that. And if you're a taxpayer, it's like, really another one. So we have a compromised El Paso FBI field office. We have an unauthorized, illegitimate chief medical examiner. We have an James 2028 Montoya, and I posted that again because that is huge because he's the prosecutor and there's no legitimate prosecutor. Then we have the Mag Court that disenfranchised the people of El Paso of their vote because they're supposed to vote for judges to fill the seats on that El Paso Magistrate Court, criminal law magistrate court, and they're not. They're not. They're appointed, is illegal. Which is illegal according to the Texas Constitution. Not me, according to the Texas Constitution, because that criminal law magistrate court has full jurisdiction. If you are that big of a court and you have full jurisdiction over the county, then you absolutely have to have elected judges for oversight, for the oversight of the cases, because it's just too big. And the people have to have a say so, right? Because you don't want corrupt judges in there. And we've seen how bad that they've ruled, right? We've seen it with our own. We could just go and look. And so, that means what they did and Patrick Crucius's case was illegal. You know, the whole the whole procedures of Patrick Crucius were defective. And that's why they ran with their tail between their leg after extorting millions of dollars in the open checkbook to avoid the death penalty. Okay, that's why they did that. They went around with their tail between the legs because we filed about, and I think this had a big part to do with it, about the Mayella Crucius marriage, right? The Mayella Crucius marriage and all that connection, and that connection absolutely debunking the narrative that Patrick Crucius randomly picked El Paso for racist reasons, and that is the foundation of the plea deals. So the plea deals have been debunked, any kind of foundation of them. They are absolutely defective. The plea deals are defective. The whole and so if they're going to mess with a case that killed 23 people and injured dozens more, if they're going to tamper and intimidate witnesses and all kinds of nonsense and withhold that very, very important information and that very, very important family that are in the federal courthouse, that are in the DA's office, that are in the Mayellas are everywhere. They're in the DA's office, they're in the FBI field office with Torres, with Nieto, with Cordero. They absolutely are in that office, and this is a close community. And Michael Mayella was there. Michael Mayella was with James Montoya, 2028 Snap Montoya. Um, uh, Michael Mayella was under Jaime Esparza, right? Who had conflicts of interest and was allowed to stay on the case, delaying the case for 2 years. The delays, the conflicts of interest, the intimidations, the interference in the cases, the tampering with documents, with timestamps, with everything. That's what's going on in El Paso. And, everything is being corroborate. Everything that we're filing corroborates what the evidence shows. So not only do we have the evidence, we have evidence that corroborates the evidence. Okay, so it's that's why we received the in the line of duty, um uh confirming uh Richard was murdered on Fort Bliss in the line of duty. We know that through testimony, through our evidence, that he was forcibly removed from the barracks. His life was taken from him after being targeted for months to try to silence him because he was a whistleblower. He was a witness. And they uh, got Bob Moore and the likes of Bob Moore and Angela Kachurga and Kathleen Gannon, and they fabricated a whole story on Richard to present to the public and did not tell them about the judges in the MAG court that are illegal, the Mayellas in the federal courthouse that are planning a wedding and related by marriage to Patrick Crucius of the Walmart mass shooting case, that the Bill Hicks was scheming to remove Yvonne Rosales because she was investigating the El Paso Community Foundation for the fraud distribution of the Walmart mass shooting victims funds that were over $12 million. They did not tell you all of this. We have been telling you all of this, that the chief medical examiner, which really gets me, it just gets me to no end, gets like over $430,000 a year, and he's illegal and he's a fraud and he's not, but he's connected to this cartel criminal group of Bob Moore. He's connected to this group. And Veronica Escobar is approving the pay for him. Samaniago is approving the pay for him. And he's just unqualified and illegal. And that's what's going. They're not telling you. Bob Moore is not telling you those things, right? Moore is not telling you the heart's connection with Nidal Baem with Bradford Bugado. He's not telling you Nidal's connection with his wife, Isis Chavira, that he just divorced, right? A 60-day divorce, which is like speedy turbo fast because of property they have. They're very big into real estate, from all kinds of buildings to, of course, warehouse buildings. And of course, um, this case, the Western Frontier Trading, um, suing him and his wife, okay, that makes her part of Western Frontier Trading, and she's totally connected to the Chaviras. Her name is Chavira. Put that together. To Gustavo Sanchez, a Texas Ranger, and how can I come on here and tell you this? I have to have something to back me up. Well, we have evidence on top of evidence backing us up. And now, the drones are coming into this. The drones, because of, this very, very big business, and it's the future. It's the future of warfare. These drones, and these drones absolutely can do all these amazing things. And there is no excuse that they don't know where Richard's remains are. We have evidence that they know that they did collect Richard's remains, but that, they're just so the cover up. Um, they did not want another Vanessa Guillen. They did not want another Vanessa Guillen. That they did whatever they could to hide her remains. I don't buy, knowing everything in this case and knowing that it's the same command, it's under the Forcecom commander, Michael Garrett, and knowing that Garrett was up to no good with us and our son's case, knowing this for a fact, knowing that they were up to no good, So you don't think that they're, and we know that they were up to no good with Vanessa Guillen's case. And they did not want Richard's remains released. That's the bottom line here. And that's absolutely cannot be tolerated. So that they could keep their pockets lined with grand theft larceny, with criminal trafficking proceeds, with big contract proceeds. This is major organized criminal activity. And anyone that gets in their way, you get a 20-year-old, Richard's birthday is in 3 days. He had just turned 21, and, um, and they can just snuff people out and then call their jefe, their media jefe capo to write false stories so that the public don't know what's going on, doesn't know the truth, and that the family doesn't know the truth either and has to spend 5 years investigating to put all this together. Yeah, it's Bob Moore is a really bad man. Um, that he worked with Leilani Hart to fabricate a story when they lost it, um, when Judge Roger Rodriguez um, identified Leilani Hart and Tavita Nusa as suspects in Richard's murder and filed it to multiple agencies. So, and Nieto leaked Judge Roger Rodriguez's name. He leaked it. He leaked it to Tavita Nusa, who leaked it, of course, to Leilani Hart, to the very people that were being identified as the suspects, and leaked the report then. And Judge Roger Rodriguez is not just a nobody. Um, El Paso Bob Moore wanted to, and Angela Kachurga and Kathleen Gannon, they went to work to try to uh, uh, smear and unqualify Judge Roger Rodriguez. But then when you go searching for reality, you find a video where he is the coordinator for anti-terrorism and homeland security programs on Fort Bliss. He's he is on international news as the coordinator for anti-terrorism and homeland security programs on Fort Bliss. Did you hear Bob Moore write that? Did you hear Kathleen Gannon write that? Did you hear Angela Kachurga write that? No, she calls me up and she's like, "Is he helping you?" And I said, "What do you mean? He did help. He did help. Aren't you interested in the report? Why don't you talk to him? He can tell you. He can name Lila. I didn't even really know who Leilani Hart was at that time. I'm like, who's Leilani Hart? Oh my gosh, Leilani Hart is Richard's platoon leader's mother, and she's a convicted criminal, and she's in this intimate relationship with the CID agent that was investigating our son, and he's leaking, and then he has his badge revoked, his badge, yeah, revoked. He absolutely had it terminated, his badge. How does that happen? What does it take to have that happen? Just you have to research everything because they just want they're just they want your mind, they want to control your mind. And we knew what they were up to because what they were saying about our son was the most absurd story. They did not know him. Otherwise, they would have never fabricated the stories like they did. And so, very clear, we knew that something was stinky. And then CID and the command tells us to our face that we have to be the investigators, that if we want to figure this out, that we have to do the investigation ourselves and bring them the leads because they can't help us unless we bring them the leads. So I think we need to get our taxpayer money back. Thank you, Martha, for coming on. So, why is George Torres so important? Well, he is up to no good in the FBI field office in El Paso, Texas, with Jesus Nieto. And Jesus Nieto's wife, Cynthia, she's in the Hernandez, she's in the Fort Bliss intelligence office. And um, George Torres's wife is a doctor at the Texas Tech University Health Science Center who has a close relationship with William Beaumont and the Army. And that means there's access to files. There's access to files. There's conflicts of interest here. Big time. Big time. And clearly, by our own findings and mountains of evidence, they clearly, this shows the public that they did not do their job because they absolutely knew that the Mayellas were eh, in the intelligence, in the law enforcement, in the healthcare, um, and absolutely up to no good, and family of Patrick Crucius, and that the narrative that Bob Moore was putting out there and other entities, media entities, was absolutely false. Was absolutely a false narrative. And that's why there was never a trial date even set. Never a trial date even set. And never a trial. Just two defective plea deals and no competency hearing. No competency hearing, just an open checkbook for millions and millions of dollars off of a stupid little application for appointed counsel that had 0 income, zero expenditures, and Pat C signature. And that stupid little application that was absolutely fraudulent let them grand theft, larceny, millions of dollars of taxpayers' money for a defective defense of Patrick Crucius, of a defective, everything defective, and defective plea deal, and no no trial date, no trial, no death penalty. It's the only one. 23 people dead, dozens injured, and no death penalty. The only one. The only one. So thank you so much, Martha. Thank you for all the prayers. Um, so yeah, that's why we're on this, and we're giving you absolutely our findings that are backed with evidence, evidence backed with evidence, and they are cover up upon cover up with false narratives. And Bob Moore is the jefe capo, media jefe capo, co conspirator of this crime. And yeah, so I think there's it's going to be a happy day when I see him in handcuffs. A very happy day. So, and uh, we can get there quicker if people share this information. Um, and, because if, he just doesn't do it just to Richard's case or the Walmart case, this is who he is. He is the fixer. He is um, the jefe capo. And, El Paso deserves more. It deserves, it can absolutely be a golden age there. But this infiltration of bad appointments and elections, and we're absolutely getting the information that um, the scheming and everything against President Trump, even his life, is this group coming out of El Paso. It's we'll see what they discover, what they um, there's a lot of investigations, but they're just totally unhinged. And it does make sense because Veronica Escobar, held the purse for not just Biden, but also for Kamala Harris, $1.2 billion. Okay. This is not, uh, this is the big league. This is the big league. And so just keep praying and keep sharing. Share. And thank you so much. And thank you for commenting, and thank you for coming on so late. God bless you. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.